Also with us tonight is National Secretary Treasurer Gary Ruffner. Secretary Treasurer Ruffner, would you like to address the delegates?
Hello everybody, it's always good to be here back in Michigan. It's my home, and I'm certainly happy every time I'm able to get back here and spend some time with all of you. And it's just great to be here. President Langford is absolutely right. We've got our work cut out for us this year on these elections. We gotta make sure that we get candidates in office that are for working families, not for corporations, that may send all of our jobs to a different country. There used to be an allegiance, with the thought that if you're good to a corporation, it's going to be good for America. Well, that's not true anymore. If you're good to a corporation, it can be what's good for China or some other third world nation. It's certainly not a guarantee it's going to benefit any jobs for us. And our industry, we're lucky that we're not dependent on a lot of that, but our jobs are dependent on manufacturing and all the power that has to be produced to provide for manufacturing and those jobs that support all of our communities. So we do have our work cut out for us this year, and I'm certainly glad to be part of the team. President Langford has got a great vision on training. Training is going to save our jobs. When corporations don't want to do training at all, they don't want to spend any money. Anytime we can get these companies to do training, it's a plus for every one of our jobs because we know that's job security to make sure that we're going to have people in those jobs doing that work. I've been pretty busy this year. We did have a problem in Indiana with one of our locals. I had to go down there and do an audit. We had a treasurer that was caught doing some embezzling, and it was pretty devastating because we found out the day that they passed the right to work law in Indiana. And I just wanted to make sure that all of you know that as officers of your local union, everybody that's an officer of your local union has a fiduciary responsibility to protect the assets of the local union. Now, I know it's difficult getting a treasurer to do the job a lot of times, but we do have to make sure that the treasurer is doing their job and they're doing it correctly to protect those assets of the local union. I've been doing financial training. We've got financial training online on our website. We're the first union that ever had financial training online, and that was done back in the year 2000. And so that's available there, and I will come out and do some training. I know Tony Elliott helps all of you with training issues, and I'm certainly glad that Tony's here to help with that. I did do some financial training in Boston back in February for Region 1. I also did some training in Pennsylvania for Local 475. They also had an embezzlement issue. It was a little bit different of an issue where the president thought he wasn't getting paid enough, and he put in for lost wages when he didn't have lost wages from the company. And he also turned in phone bills that were pretty exorbitant, and it just got under the radar screen of people that didn't know any better and didn't make sure that there were receipts provided for phone bills and for cable TV. This guy in Pennsylvania, we probably paid for his cable TV, his internet, and his telephone, and God knows if there were cell phones for his entire family on those bills. bills were turned in as a voucher, but no backup receipt for it. So we've got to make sure that we protect those assets and make sure that our trustees that audit your books are trained so that they look for things that might be wrong, make sure that the bank balances are accurate, and we've got an 11-step program on the website. We use 10 steps that are used by the Department of Labor, and I added an 11th step to it because the Department of Labor, they ignored the fact that the locals have to file a 990 report. And if a 990 report isn't filed, you can have penalties of $10 a day or more. And when the Department of Labor was putting that booklet together, they asked me to look at it back in the year 2000, and I looked at it and I told them that it was missing the requirement that they verify that the 990 report was filed with the IRS. And they said, well, we've already approved the book, so we're not going to put it in there. And so they haven't revised it since then. But that is a very serious matter, not filing the 990 report. And in 2007, they came out with a requirement, the IRS did, that any local that had less than $25,000 in revenue would have to file a 990N, which is an electronic notice. So absolutely every local has to file a 990 report of some sort. And this year and last year for 2010, the limit for the 990N was $50,000. So if anybody in here filed a 990EZ and they have less than $50,000 in revenue, they can file the 990N, which is a very simple electronic notice. All you have to do is register online, get a password, and verify that your assets are less than $50,000, and the IRS accepts that. Instead of going through all the work preparing for a 990EZ. So anything over $50,000 is a 990EZ, and anything over $200,000 is the full 990 report, which is very difficult and very. Most locals like to use a CPA or their accountant to do the 990 because it is so involved. But I'm certainly willing to help anybody that's got any problems doing that. Now the 990EZ, since that, or the 990N, excuse me, the electronic notice, if that wasn't filed in 3 consecutive years, starting in 2007, you can have your tax exempt status revoked. And we did have some locals that lost their tax exempt status because we didn't know how many locals were filing and how many weren't. It wasn't until last year that they even disclosed the information about who filed the 990N and who didn't. So we couldn't even check to see who did and didn't. We had about 60 locals that didn't file and ended up losing their tax exempt status. Now, getting the tax exempt status reinstated is very difficult and a heck of a lot more difficult than filing the 990N. So I have been helping locals with that issue to get their tax exempt status back. If you don't have tax exempt status, that means you have to pay taxes, corporate taxes on the dues that you receive. And going from nonprofit to paying corporate taxes is not a good solution for any local union. So let me know if anybody's got that problem. We have been successful in getting the tax exempt status reinstated for some of our smaller locals, and I'm certainly glad to help anybody with what's required to do that.